understanding, and usually for those mitzvahs, child has to be 6 or 7. Again, depends on the child. So there are precocious children who could be even younger ages to understand these things. And there are slower children that maybe have to be a little bit older to understand these things. But for a normal child, the first kind of mitzvah is around 5 or 6. The second kind of mitzvah is around 6 or 7. How about prohibitions? Okay? Child shouldn't eat something that's not kosher. Shouldn't do something that's asur on Shabbos. There, the child doesn't have to be so mature as he has to be for a mitzvah saseh. He has to just understand the idea of we don't do that now. Okay, not just that you tell him, don't eat this thing now, and he understands my mother or father said, don't do it now, and that's it. Right? But he doesn't understand that same thing tomorrow he shouldn't eat either. He has to be able to understand that this kind of thing we don't do. And there's an idea of one day a week when there's a Shabbos, and there's certain things we don't do on Shabbos, right? Children, everything, it's muktzah, right? That's the blanket thing for anything that's also on Shabbos is muktzah, it's muktzah. So when a child can understand there's muktzah, and muktzah is not on Tuesday or Wednesday, but there's a Shabbos, and he understands the days of the week, and that usually a child is between 4 and 5 years old, already has a concept of time, concept of things, there are differences between different things. These are the kind of food we eat. This is the kind of foods that we don't eat, right? A child between 4 and 5 already is capable of being educated not to do things that are prohibited. So those are the mitzvah, and that mitzvah applies only to parents. You don't have to educate other people's children. You have to educate your own children. So you have a mitzvah to teach your children how to do positive commandments, and you have a mitzvah to see to it that they don't do negative commandments when they reach this age. Before that age, before they are capable of understanding bichlal, what Shabbos is all about. They don't understand the difference between Tuesday, Wednesday, or Saturday. It's all the same to them. Right? Every day they wake up, they don't understand a different day. It's all the same. So they're under that age, right? So then there is no mitzvah even on a parent to stop a child from doing something asur. Right? A child does something on Shabbos for themselves, right? And they'll be lower than that age where they can understand anything. Parent doesn't have to, even a parent doesn't have to stop their children. Other people, so the halacha is when a child is of educationable age, and we're talking about him doing something wrong from the Torah. He's eating chazer, and he's already of an educationable age, 4 or 5 years old. He understands that chazer is asur, that there are certain things that are not permitted to eat, right? Then the halacha, even a stranger, even somebody not a parent, has to stop that child from eating something or doing something that's prohibited by the Torah. But he doesn't have to stop the child from doing something that's prohibited only rabbinically. The exception to that is that if the child is not of an educationable age, and the child is doing something that, well, let's go to that in a second. So in any case, but a parent has to stop his child from doing something rabbinically prohibited, Torah prohibited, makes no difference, once he has the age at least 4 or 5 years old. Before that, he doesn't have to stop. But it's part of the education. If you have to train a child, surely you have to stop him from doing something wrong. Okay. If the child, what he's doing wrong, causes damage, or causes some kind of takala or whatever, right? There, even some people should stop a child who's breaking windows, even if he's a 2-year-old. Right? He's causing other people damage. But for the child's sake, if the child is of an educationable age, everybody has to stop him from doing something wrong. If it's a Torah prohibition, if it's only a rabbinic prohibition, only the parents are required to stop him. Teaching the child to do mitzvahs is only the obligation of the parents, and it starts for each mitzvah according to the age that the child is capable of doing that mitzvah, and mitzvahs that need certain understanding the concept of the mitzvah. To give a child something that is prohibited Makes no difference if it's prohibited from the Torah or prohibited rabbinically. No one is allowed to give a child something, to make him do something that's prohibited. To take a child, and take him by the hands. You want a light put on Shabbos, right? You can't take the child and put him, up to a light switch and take his hand and make sure that he turns on the light. You're causing that child, even a 1-day-old infant, you can't do that to. If the child does it on his own, then it's a matter of not stopping him. If he's not educational age, you can let a child play around the light switch. You want the light on, as long as he doesn't know he's doing it for you. He's doing it because he's playing or because he's doing it for himself. You don't have to stop him, even if you're the parent, if he's under the age of education. Okay. But to give him to do it as a shaila, what that means. Does that mean to put it in his... You can't give a child something that's prohibited to eat. So what does that mean? Put it in his mouth? That for sure. How about put it in front of him where you know for sure that he's going to eat it? According to many opinions, that is also usher. In time of need, one can put something in front of a child that's usher, right? As long as it doesn't cause the child to actually eat it, or anything similar to that with Hilchos Shabbos or whatever. Okay, so that's by a normal, regular child. These are the basic guidelines of chinuch. How does that apply now to children who are impaired? And there's a cherish and a shota and a kot, and they're grouped together usually, so the same halachas apply to them. Basically, first let's define a shota. A real shota is a person who is either insane. Insane means he's irrational. That means it's not a matter that his intelligence is impaired. There are many shotim, many insane people who are geniuses. I knew one insane person years ago in Cleveland, that he was a walking, calendar. He could tell you any year, 100 years from now, you tell him the date, he'll tell you what day of the week it is. He was a genius. It was in a photographic memory, and somehow he memorized the calendar system. And he knew it about that, but he was insane. The child was completely not a rational being. Couldn't make rational decisions. He was irrational. Okay? That's one kind of shota. A person like that is exempt from the whole Torah because he can't make moral decisions. Sometimes a person can be irrational, and sometimes he can have rational moments. When he's rational, he's required to keep the Torah. When he's irrational, he's not. That's a shota. Another kind of shota is a person who's not only limited in his intellect, but he basically has such a low intellect, the intellect of an infant. He can't think. His level of intelligence is basically infantile. That's another kind of shota. A child who has limited intelligence, retarded intelligence. So it depends. If he has the intelligence of a 4 or 5-year-old, even if he's 15 years old, but just as a 4 and 5-year-old, there's a mitzvah of chinuch, because that child can understand that it's Shabbos and we don't do certain things on Shabbos, and this is something that's prohibited to eat. If the child has that intelligence, then he's not a shota. He's just not normal intelligence, of lesser intelligence, but that lesser intelligence can be dealt with a gabe isurim. If he has a little bit more, he has the intelligence of a 5 or 6-year-old, then he can be taught mitzvahs. A 6 or 7-year-old, he can be taught other mitzvahs. A child basically who has the intelligence of a 6 or 7-year-old, where all the mitzvahs of chinuch would apply to a child of that age. So an adult of that age is bar mitzvah. He's chayiv to keep mitzvahs, and you have to educate him and see to it that he keeps mitzvahs according to the level of a 6 or 7-year-old. Because a 6 and 7-year-old child is educationable at that age with that kind of intelligence. So an adult with intelligence like that is also not a shota. He's called a pesi. He's a slow, low intelligence person, but you don't have to be a high intelligence person to keep the Torah. So if he's capable of what a normal child would be of educational age for either prohibitions, for physical mitzvahs, for mitzvahs that involve concepts, that's what you're required to do for a person like that, even if he's 100 years old. And a child like that also. Right? If he's a child, he's over bar mitzvah or she's over bas mitzvah, right? Then they are legally adults. They can be counted for a child. A boy can be counted for a minyan, for a mezumin, right? They're chayiv in mitzvahs. The mitzvahs they can do. The mitzvahs they can't do, so they're anusim. They are, incapable of doing it. The Torah doesn't demand somebody do something they can't do. Same thing goes for physical impurities. A child that, Rahman al-San, somebody doesn't have arms, can't put on tefillin. Somebody who has no control over their arms. It's impossible for them to put on, could be the potter from tefillin altogether. A child like that. And so too with all the other mitzvahs. A mitzvah that a person can do physically, he's required to do. A mitzvah that he can't do physically, so he's exempt from that mitzvah. He's an onus. He's in the parsha, but he can't do it. So it's not that he's not he's not required to do it, but he's chayiv to do it as like anybody else, except he has a good reason why he's exempt, because he can't do it. The acheresh, a deaf, mute, person who's only deaf who can speak is a normal person, depending on what his intelligence is. It's a person who can not speak but hear also has the same din of a regular person. It depends on his mental capabilities. A deaf mute, there the Torah said that for whatever reason a person who can't speak or hear is to a certain degree out of reality and is considered like a shota. Bisman hazeh, where there are methods, first of all there's hearing aids, that even maybe a deaf person can somehow hear something. And there are ways of teaching deaf mutes to speak some way, even if not intelligible to everyone. But, right? And definitely there are deaf mutes who are very, very astute. So it could be that, especially if he can speak or she can speak minimally, right? They're not considered anymore a deaf mute completely. They don't have the din of a shota, and then it depends on on what their capabilities are, l'gabi mitzvahs. And they can be counted as a minyan and so on. This is a very gray area, because here it's clear that the Torah said deaf mute is exempt from mitzvahs like a shota. But it's very possible that since today it's possible to help and aid the hearing and the speaking, so then that person is no longer a pure deaf mute, and is no longer under that cloud that a deaf mute is has a din of a shota. In any case, so therefore a parent has a responsibility. Most Down syndrome children have limited but enough intelligence to be able to do mitzvahs, not to do averos, and the level of depends again on the retardation, right? Not in Down syndrome, but other things. Right, but a child that has the intelligence of a 6 or 7 year old, or an adult who has the intelligence of a 6 or 7 year old, is chayiv in mitzvahs and has to be educated to mitzvahs like any other child, even though it may not be as easy. And therefore, even a child that doesn't have that intelligence, there's a shaila whether you're allowed to give that child something that's asur. And the consensus pretty much is that even if there's a chance that that child one day can be taught and brought up, the level can be brought up, or the child will listen. The child at least has that basic idea of what, right? Or someday it'll be able to listen and be obedient. You can't give that child an isser, just like you can't give an infant something asur. But there, sometimes say because one day he'll be an adult, right? So therefore, you can't even give it to him when he's a child. But a child will never become an adult, meaning he'll never have the intelligence of an adult. There's a shaila. Basically, Moshe Feinstein, the Chassam Sofer, had a shaila of a girl who was basically Shota, but there was a chance that they could teach her and bring her level of intelligence up. The question was to put her into an institution where they would feed her treif. And the Chassam Sofer advised against it. But in that situation, there was a chance that the level of the intelligence child could be brought up, and therefore eating treif is metamtim misalev, would affect her adversely, and would affect the ability of getting her to a level where she would be able to understand. Rav Moshe Feinstein says that in a situation where there's no hope, child is physically brain damaged or whatever, there's no chance that child will ever be brought to a higher level of intelligence, and they're below the level of even understanding what's asur and what's mutter, then putting a child like that in an institution like that is okay. Because the child will never reach a level where they'll be able to be educated or be chayiv in mitzvahs. And if that's what's best for that child, that's what's mutter. In any case, that is the basics of what the guidelines for chinuch, mitzvahs, prohibitions are for normal children, and memela for children who are have similar mental capabilities, even if they're not children. Okay. How much time should a person put in to teaching? How much money into at the expense of other children in the family? I can't answer that question in a generic way. It really depends on the dynamics of the family. It depends on what the repercussions will be to that child if you don't put that extra in. Where are they going to be, and what's going to be the repercussions to the other members of the family if you don't put it into them? And then when you know all the dynamics and you can weigh all the different possibilities, then you can come to a decision. There's no generic rule to those things. It really depends on, and also sometimes parents should realize that they are not the sole responsibility. It's a responsibility of a parent to educate their children who are minors. Once a child becomes a gadol, the parent's responsibility is diminished. And with these kind of children who are basically adults, right, and just that there's a mitzvah now to teach them or whatever, basically it's a communal responsibility, not only the parent's own responsibility. And there should be organizations like this, Fathers Connect, and other organizations created, and help given by the community to parents, right? As I hear that the government gives help like that, maybe not enough, but government never gives enough in anybody's eyes. But in any case, they give help to help the parents alleviate the burden on their shoulders and spread it to other people, either people who are volunteer or people can be paid to help or whatever, and free up a lot of the time, at least, that parents can give to their other children, their other needs, and even sometimes the money that can be used for other things when the money may come from the community or whatever to aid parents who have this burden. I'll give you an example of a question that I was asked. Mr. Stromberg sent me some questions from various people. And I'll give you one example. A person has a daughter who's 29 years old. She's wheelchair bound with cerebral palsy and has no use of her left arm and hand. The father was advised once that his daughter, who was of normal intelligence and speech, so she's required to keep mitzvahs, right, that she can, is obligated to do netilas yadayim on two hands before motzi and coming out of the bathroom. Someone must always be with the girl to assist her, since only one hand is functional. She can't possibly wash both of her hands because one hand is dysfunctional completely. So somebody has to be with her all the time to wash her hands before a meal, before she comes out of the bathroom or whatever. The father is angry about being so bound up by the halacha. Is this a correct ruling? In my eyes, this is absurd. I don't know who told person to do this, but it's for sure not what I would have told the person to do, for two reasons. First of all, there's no halacha, mikar hadin, that when a person leaves the bathroom, he has to wash with a cup and pour the water 3 times over his hand. The person wants to do that, it's a nice hider. But it's not a halacha. So that's for sure. When this girl goes to the bathroom, she can turn on the faucet with her normal hand and wash both hands underneath the faucet herself. That's for sure. That's no shaila. I don't know why somebody ever said that somebody has to accompany her, and after the bathroom and wash her hands like negelvas. In the morning, yeah, it's for sure preferable that somebody should wash her hands 3 times with a kli, right? That's 1 time when she gets up in the morning, and that's it. For eating, there are other eitzes, right? They are not normal situations. They are only done under duress situations. This is a duress situation. Okay, a person can't find water, right, within a certain amount of distance, so he's allowed to wear gloves or eat with a utensil that's not normally used for eating, like a wooden spoon or something like that, and doesn't have to wash for motzi. Can eat bread without washing. Certain times, just even putting a glove on the hand itself is okay. So in this situation, for sure, the girl could cover her hands. Surely eating with a utensil that's not normally used 100% for eating purposes makes it even better. Could be you don't even need that, right? But if they would ask me the shaila lamaisa, I would look into it more. But there definitely are eitzes for this girl not to have somebody around her all the time washing her hands. Right? The only time that she would have to wash really is in the morning, and even there, if somebody washed in the morning, she should have in mind that the whole day that washing will help even for eating bread. And then all the other things are hidurim, to wear gloves, whatever. But there are definitely other possibilities that would make this much more easy to handle and still fulfill the halacha. So I don't know who told this person that the girl needs this and made it oppressive, but there are ways many times of not getting around the halacha, but understanding the limitations of the person, and because of that, the halacha doesn't change, but there are accommodations for those kinds of situations. In other situations, they apply here also. Another question, a delicate question. A child who is impaired, mentally, intellectually. And the child, therefore, maybe can't be taught certain mitzvahs, and not of an age where certain mitzvahs they can do, or certain prohibitions they can stop from. So again, you're not allowed to give them those prohibitions, but you don't have to necessarily stop them from doing those if they're not capable of understanding or controlling themselves. And therefore, certain sexual averas, people masturbating, which is an avera, okay? But a child who can be told, and even that's difficult sometimes for children to understand or whatever, right? But there's a certain age where you can speak to a child, lecture them, explain to them, or whatever. It's not a proper thing to do or whatever. But a child who is mentally impaired, most of the time probably not going to be able to explain to that child, and they basically going to follow their basic animal urges and do what's pleasurable to them. To instruct a child like that to do that, because it lessens the pressure on the child or whatever, that's awesome. That's called safin and leisur, that's awesome. That's directing the child to do something awesome. But to put a blind eye and not stop the child, right, considering the fact that the child is not of an age where he can be educated, and he's not of the mental capability of being educated, you don't have to stop the child either. So that would be, in that situation, right, he's not obligated to stop his special child from touching himself, but on the other hand, he surely can't instruct the child and be a party to the child doing this because he feels that it's good for the child to release a lot of his tensions or whatever in that way. That not. Some of these other questions, because obligation of chinuch, we explained. Am I obligated to spend time teaching my special needs child Torah and mitzvahs when it's questionable if he or she will ever understand or be able to apply it in his adult life? Especially my special needs child requires so much more time to learn, which I give it to him will take away from my own learning. Like we said, again, the balance depends really on the specific situation. But is there a chiyuv yet? If a child is least of an age, a mental age of 6 or 7, then when they become an adult, they'll be chayav in mitzvahs too, the mitzvahs they can do. And there's a mitzvah to educate them to those mitzvahs also. How do I balance giving a disproportionate amount of my time to my special needs child who may not grow very much when the same time spent with my typical child may move him great distances? Again, I can't give a generic answer to that. I have to know what the implications are for the child that doesn't have special needs, what the special needs child, right, how much time to balance it, where each one will get what the repercussions of not getting it would not be disastrous. Same thing with money. Disproportionate amount of money I have to spend on my special needs child. My typical daughter needs money for a shidduch. How do I set priorities? Again, that's a very personal, individual question that depends on the situation in that family, how much money we're talking about, how to split it up, balance it is something they can't. Here's a question that applies even to regular children. I don't know why it's only by special needs. We have foster cared for our 18-year-old special needs son since he was 1 month old. He's an adopted child who's now 18 years old. What are the rules re negia, in particular touching and hugging his mother and sister? Okay. So here this question comes up bichlal by what's it called, by adopted children. Right? Somebody who raised an adopted child from infancy. We're not talking where you adopted him when he was 18. It's a different story. You adopted him when he was a few months old. Then, according to most poskim, he can hug and kiss his mother even when he's over bar mitzvah. Some hold that once he's bar mitzvah, he shouldn't, but there is good reason, right, that if that mother raised that boy or a father raised a girl from the time they were infants, the idea of, even though it's not a biological child, but the father has those fatherly feelings for that daughter because he raised her for an infancy as a father, or the mother for the son, and therefore their hugging and kissing is not the kind of hugging and kissing that's prohibited. It's 100% permitted. Between brothers and sisters, a different story. Until they're bar and bas mitzvah, I would let them function, but even brothers and sisters who are mamish blood relations, beyond bar mitzvah is not a good idea for brothers and sisters to hug and kiss each other, and therefore surely there's a reason to be machmer. Yichud is a different story. To be miyachid with an adopted child, right? There it's a halacha, has nothing to do with what the intentions are or whatever, and there are definitely, most poskim hold you can't have yichud, but there are ways of seeing to it that the isur doesn't apply. Right, various ways, and somebody who has that situation should ask a shaila how he can circumvent the problem of yichud, where there won't be yichud and it still won't affect the normal family relations. Okay. How are we supposed to relate to the terms cheirish, shota, pesi with our developmentally delayed children? I think I covered that. What are the guidelines for including by bar mitzvah age special needs son in a minyan or zimun? Again, a child who has the intelligence even of a 6 or 7 year old, when he becomes an adult, is bar mitzvah, can count for a minyan, can be part of a mezumin, is 100% regular, normal adult Jew. Girl, the same thing. My adult age special needs son davens at school every day. In fact, he has been chosen to lead the davening there. Shabbos Mincha, my son never misses going because the Gabbai has made a kesher with my son and lets him do Hagba almost every week. On Shabbos morning, however, my son wants to sleep in. Should I push him to go to shul for Shachris? At home, he davens Shachris in about 3 to 5 minutes. So here again, it depends on what the capabilities of that child are. child can make Hagba, doesn't necessarily able to daven Shemona Esrei. And a child who's not capable of davening Shemona Esrei is not of the educational age to daven Shemona Esrei. Right? He doesn't have the zitzfleish, and he's not capable of concentrating or whatever. So that mitzvah doesn't apply. And therefore, even a child who's an adult, whose mental capabilities and ability to concentrate and to stay in one place, right, doesn't exist, and he's not responsible for that mitzvah. And therefore, encourage him to do what he can do, and don't make him do things that are he's not capable of doing. Okay. My special needs daughter is 6. At what age or level of understanding would it no longer be appropriate for her to accompany me on the men's side of the kosel? Okay, the problem over here is not her understanding. The problem is the men. So the basic halacha is like this. According to the Mishnah Berurah, a girl of 3 years old already has all the halachas of an adult girl, right? Legabe inyone arayas, yichud, or whatever. She has to dress tsanua and whatever. The Chazon Ish and my Rebbeim, the Telzer Rosh Hashiva, also held differently. They held that a girl, until she's around 6, 7, maybe 8, and she begins to start to look like a young lady and not a little girl, these halachas don't apply. So basically, I'm the Rav in Moshav Matityahu, we say that a father can bring his daughter into the men's section even when she's over 3. However, once she's 3, he can't bring her into the men's section unless she's dressed properly, where the way a tsanua girl has to dress. She doesn't have to dress outside the shul like that, according to us, until she's 6 or 7. Till 6 or 7, not like the Mishnah Berurah says, but more like the Chazon Ish and more like my Rebbeim, that a girl who's less than 6 or 7 does not yet have to dress tsanua. She doesn't have to have longer sleeves. She can have shorter dresses or whatever, because she's still a little kid. She's not starting to look like a young lady. She starts to look like a young lady somewhere around 7, 8 years old, around there. The same thing applies to a special needs child. It doesn't make a difference on what the girl knows, right? It's how the men are going to look at her. And if she already starts to look like a young lady, even though her mental age is 3, she can't be brought into the men's section. Right? If she doesn't yet look like a young lady, she's impaired maybe physically also, then even an older age can be brought in. It really doesn't depend on the girl's mental prowess. It depends really on her look. Okay. What determines what kind of bar mitzvah preparation I give my special needs son? The same thing that depends what bar mitzvah preparation you give your not special needs son. Because every son is a special need, right? In some places, every child lanes the whole parsha. And a child who doesn't lane the whole parsha feels like he is second class. That is a terrible, terrible thing to do to a child. Not every child can lane a whole parsha, right? Some children are very fine, but they just don't have a memory to lane, or they're not musically inclined, and they can't do it. To force them to do it and to waste a half a year with lessons to that is a avla to that child. You're wasting his time for things he could be doing better, and you're making him do something that's oppressive to him. So my own children, some of them laned, some of them laned one parsha, whatever they could do. And whatever the child can do, that's what they should be encouraged to do, so they feel that they accomplished something. But not there should be a communal standard that everybody has to live up to, or they feel like they're second rate. And in shuls where they have that idea, it's a terrible, terrible avla to children. And I think in most places now they understand that's not the case. Parents should not force their children to do things they can't do. They should more encourage them to do things they can do and that they feel they accomplished something. So if a child can't learn to lane, let him say a nicer Dvar Torah, if he can do that. Right? Let him learn something and make a siyum. Right? If he can do that. Whatever it is. The same thing goes with a special needs child. We had a child when I was a Rav here in Har Nof, a Down syndrome child that has bar mitzvah, and he laned the first aliyah. And it took him a long time to learn, but he wanted to do it. And we didn't make him lane more than that. And he laned, and you could be yotzei, right? People had tears in their eyes. Right? They were Yotzei L'Mahadrin. Maybe not, because they heard every word they heard enough to be Yotzei the Kriya. If the child couldn't lane, that anybody could understand him, right, then wouldn't be allowed to lane. It's not for him to something to do. Let him do something else that he can do. But this child could enunciate the words enough that they were close enough to the real word to be Yotzei, and the child wanted very much to do it, and one aliyah he could do, and that child felt like the king of the world, that he could do something just like everybody else could do it. That was Kedai. If the child can't do it, then don't force him to do something because the parent wants to show him off. It's not for the sake of the parents, it's for the sake of the child. So it applies not only to special needs children, it applies to all children. Whatever the child can do, let him do and feel that he accomplished something. And not to feel he's a failure. And do it in such a way that after shul, people are going to be complaining about what he did, and the kid will feel that he's a failure. That not. Okay, if anybody else has any other questions, not specific questions about your specific case, that's something you should ask your own Rav who knows you, who knows your child, who knows your family, right? Not some stranger like me who doesn't know you, doesn't know your family, doesn't know your situation, and would be a fool to answer your question. And therefore, if I answer your question, you don't want to hear my answer because it's foolish. And if I'm not a fool, I won't answer your question, so there's no tachlis of asking it. Okay. But some more general questions or whatever, I'm more happy to answer. Yeah.
For a child who can count the meanings or consume them or how do we determine if the child can be motzi? What are the criteria?
To be motzi someone else, he has to know what he's doing. He has to know what benching is, okay? And know how to bench properly, enunciate the words properly. And if he's an adult and he knows that, then he could be motzi people too. He's a bar chiyuva, right? In other words, once we say he's a bar mitzvah, he's a bar chiyuva. He has to bench, and he can be motzi other people in benching. If he's not of that level, right, so then he's not a bar chiyuva. Maybe he can't be motzi somebody else either. If he can be taught like a parrot to parrot the words, but he has no idea what he's doing because his intelligence isn't like that, then he's not a bar mitzvah. Maybe he can't be motzi anybody like that. Any other questions? Anybody up there? Okay, I appreciate your giving me this opportunity. I hope that I accomplished something here. I hope that you're going away more mechuzik and with more understanding than you came here. And I'd be happy if people want to ask me privately or whatever, not necessarily now, but on the phone or whatever, I'm more than happy to give you as much chizik as I can. I probably will get a lot more chizik from speaking to you than you'll get from me. So I appreciate that also.